High Counselor Zixtal stood before the massive quantum display, their crystalline form refracting light across the Galactic Council's observation chamber. The display showed a small blue planet, seemingly unremarkable among the millions of worlds under the Council's watch. Yet something about this world, Earth, had been keeping the ancient being awake through multiple lunar cycles. "Show me the progression again," Zixtal commanded. The AI complied, displaying a time-lapse of human technological development over the past 3 centuries. The pattern was wrong. Every other species followed predictable advancement curves, military technology surging ahead during conflicts, then social and medical advances during peace. But humans, their progress appeared almost orchestrated, too smooth, too consistent. Most peculiar, observer Renthal noted, their tentacles rippling with concern. They appeared to be advancing in all sectors simultaneously, yet their military capacity seems remarkably underdeveloped for their level of achievement. Zixtal's crystalline structure pulsed with unease. That was precisely what had been bothering them. Humans had mastered quantum computing, yet their warships still used primitive chemical propulsion. They had cracked genetic engineering but hadn't developed energy weapons. Every scan, every observation, every diplomatic exchange painted the same picture, a species focused entirely on peaceful development. It was impossible. "Connect me to Ambassador Lanet on Earth," Zixtal ordered. Moments later, the holographic form of their most experienced diplomat materialized. High Counselor, Lanet bowed, their silver-scaled skin gleaming. "To what do I owe this honor?" "Your latest report on the humans' response to our technology-sharing initiative." "Elaborate." "Of course, High Counselor. The humans continue to show remarkable enthusiasm for our agricultural and medical technologies. They've already implemented several improvements to our basic designs. However," Lanet paused, their scales shifting color slightly. "Continue," Zixtal prompted. "When we offered military technology exchanges, they seemed almost disinterested. They politely declined, claiming their current defensive capabilities were sufficient for their needs." Zixtal's crystal structure emitted a low hum of concern. No species had ever declined military technology. It defied all known psychological patterns. "Show me their orbital defense network," Zixtal commanded the AI. A detailed scan appeared, showing a sparse collection of primitive satellites and defense platforms. "Now overlay their commercial satellite network." The display lit up with thousands of points of light, communication satellites, weather monitors, research platforms. The density was astronomical, far exceeding any practical need. "High Counselor," Research Director Vexmore interjected, their mechanical appendages clicking nervously. "We've detected something else. The humans' entertainment broadcasts, their fiction, contains an unusually high percentage of scenarios involving conflict with advanced alien civilizations. Preparation through imagination," Zixtal mused. "Computer, analyze human military spending over the last century." The data streamed across the display. Official military budgets had remained consistently low, yet their aerospace research, quantum physics studies, and artificial intelligence development had skyrocketed, all classified under civilian applications. "They're hiding something," Zixtal declared. "No species achieves this level of advancement without military applications. It's not possible." "What are you suggesting, High Counselor?" Renthal asked. "I'm suggesting, observer, that we're not seeing their true capabilities. Every species we've encountered has followed the same pattern. Develop weapons first, ask questions later. The humans are different. They're developing everything else first and hiding their military advancement in plain sight." "But why?" Lanet asked. "The Council guarantees peace. We've maintained galactic stability for millennia." Zixtal's crystal structure darkened. "Perhaps that's precisely why." "Computer, show me human historical patterns of warfare." The display filled with battles, strategies, and conflicts spanning thousands of years. One pattern emerged consistently. The most successful human military leaders were those who achieved victory through deception, appearing weak when strong. They're not peaceful, Zixtal realized, their crystalline form pulsing with alarm. They're preparing. Have been preparing, possibly since first contact. Every peaceful exchange, every technological trade, every diplomatic mission. They've been studying us, learning our capabilities, while hiding their own. What should we do? Renthal asked, their tentacles writhing with anxiety. Zixtal faced the council members, their crystal structure now pulsing with determined purpose. We must act now while we still can. If humans are indeed hiding advanced military capabilities, every day we wait gives them more time to prepare. We will demand their immediate submission to council authority and technological oversight. If they refuse, the High Counselor turned back to the display of Earth, their crystalline form casting ominous shadows across the chamber. We will have no choice but to eliminate this potential threat to galactic peace, for the good of all species. In the depths of the Himalayan mountains, inside a facility that officially didn't exist, Admiral Sarah Chen received the quantum transmission of the Council's discussion. She allowed herself a small smile as she activated the secure global network. All units, Operation Looking Glass is now active. They took the bait. Prepare for Phase 2. Humanity's trap, centuries in the making, was about to snap shut. The United Nations General Assembly Hall buzzed with controlled chaos as Admiral Chen's quantum feed played on every delegate's secure tablet. Earth's representatives maintained their rehearsed expressions of concern, but beneath the surface, anticipation coursed through the room like an electric current. High Counselor Zixtal's holographic form materialized above the central podium, towering 20 meters tall. The crystalline being's facade pulsed with what the Council species believed to be intimidating colors. No one in the chamber showed any sign of recognizing the exact frequency pattern, one that human quantum physicists had spent decades analyzing for weaknesses. People of Earth, Zixtal's voice resonated through the chamber. Your species has violated the fundamental principles of galactic harmony. Your technological development follows dangerous patterns. Your cultural obsession with conflict threatens the peace we have maintained for millennia. In the secure command center beneath Mount Cheyenne, General Marcus Rodriguez watched the transmission with his senior staff. Right on schedule, he muttered, checking the chronometer. Always so predictable. Back in the UN chamber, Zixtal continued. The Council hereby demands Earth's immediate submission to technological oversight and genetic adjustment protocols. You have 48 standard hours to comply. Refusal will result in your species' reclassification as a terminal threat to galactic stability. Ambassador Elena Torres rose from her seat, the picture of diplomatic concern. High Counselor, surely there must be some misunderstanding. Humanity has always striven to. The time for diplomacy has ended. Zixtal's form flared brightly. Your attempts at deception have failed. We have seen through your facade of peaceful development. As the hologram vanished, leaving the chamber in artificial uproar, Torres touched the quantum communicator disguised as a simple earring. Phase 2 is green. They didn't detect any of our hidden installations during the transmission. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. James Wong smiled as he received Torres's confirmation. The quantum entanglement facility around him hummed with power as he initiated the global defense grid's startup sequence. 50 years of hiding our quantum shielding technology behind experimental marine research about to pay off. In high orbit, Captain Maya Patel watched from her civilian research vessel as the Council's initial war fleet emerged from hyperspace. The ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, exactly as their tactical doctrine demanded. Their energy signatures matched the Council's transmitted specifications down to the decimal. All ships maintain emissions control, she subvocalized through her neural link. Let them think those defense satellites are all we have. Dimensional Pocket Stations, Status Report. Pocket 1. Ready. The response came from a space that, according to every known law of physics, didn't exist. Commander David Chen, no relation to the Admiral. watched through quantum-shifted space as his fleet of ships waited in the artificial dimension humans had discovered decades ago. The Council's sensors would register nothing but background radiation. Around the globe, similar reports flooded in through quantum-encrypted channels. Underground bases, underwater facilities, and orbital platforms hidden in artificial dimensions. Humanity's real military infrastructure, prepared for war. In her office at the Pentagon, Admiral Chen opened a small box on her desk. Inside lay a single object, the first alien artifact ever recovered on Earth, decades before official first contact. The Council had never questioned why humans seemed so prepared for their arrival. Never wondered why Earth's languages already had translations for their terms. Never investigated why human technology seemed to develop in convenient parallel with their own. "Send the response," she ordered. In the UN chamber, Ambassador Torres stood again, activating the quantum transmitter that would reach the Council's fleet. "After careful consideration of your demands," she began, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation, "humanity respectfully declines." Aboard the Council's flagship, Zixtol received the transmission with satisfaction. "They choose extinction. Begin the attack." The Council's ships powered up their weapon systems, their energy signatures blazing across human sensors. In response, Earth's orbital defense platforms began powering up as well, exactly as the Council expected. What they didn't expect was the quantum signal that flashed from Earth's surface, a code buried in what appeared to be routine satellite maintenance chatter. Operation Echo began. In her office, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Let's show them what humanity's been hiding for the past century." The trap was set. The Council's forces were committed, and humanity's real capabilities were about to be revealed. All across Earth, in places that didn't officially exist, using technology that shouldn't be possible, human forces prepared to demonstrate why appearances could be deceiving. The Council had maintained peace for 3,000 years by being the most advanced civilization in known space. They were about to learn they weren't anymore. The Council's first strike was textbook perfect, exactly as humanity had expected. Their energy weapons lanced toward Earth's primitive defense platforms, following attack patterns documented in their own military archives. Archives they'd proudly shared during cultural exchanges, never suspecting how thoroughly humans would analyze every detail. Captain Maya Patel watched from her cloaked vessel as the alien beams struck the orbital platforms. The resulting explosions were spectacular and completely harmless. Holographic defense grid performing exactly as designed. She reported through her neural link. "They're buying the light show." On the Council's flagship, High Counselor Zixtol's crystalline form pulsed with satisfaction as Earth's apparent defenses crumbled. Primitive technology, as expected. Begin Phase 2 of the assault. The Council fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their ships arranging themselves for the standard subjugation pattern they'd used successfully for millennia. None of their sensors detected the quantum ripples spreading through space, ripples created by technology they believed impossible. Deep within Pocket Dimension Alpha, Commander David Chen gave the order they'd waited generations to deliver. Operation Echo, Phase 1. All ships, power up quantum matrices. Prepare to show them what humanity's really been working on. The Council fleet had just reached optimal attack position when their sensors detected something impossible. Energy signatures appearing from nowhere, surrounding their formation. Before they could react, space itself seemed to tear open. From dimensional pockets that shouldn't exist, humanity's real fleet emerged. Ships that made the orbital platforms look like children's toys appeared in perfect attack formation. Their design was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered, because humans had engineered them specifically to counter Council technology. By the first light, Zixtol whispered, their crystalline form clouding with disbelief. "Impossible. Their technology level." "Target locked," announced Commander Sarah Martinez from her flagship, the HSS Deception. "All ships, execute Pattern Omega. Let's show them what those civilian research projects were really about. The human fleet opened fire. Instead of the primitive nuclear weapons the Council expected, they launched quantum-shifted gravity bombs, weapons that bypassed shields by attacking through dimensional space. The Council's vaunted defensive systems, calibrated for energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. Multiple direct hits, Martins reported, her voice calm despite the historic moment. Their shield frequencies are exactly as our analysis predicted. Not a single variance. The Council fleet attempted to regroup, their ships moving to implement defensive protocols that had served them for thousands of years. But humans had studied those protocols, designed countermeasures, and waited patiently for this moment. They're attempting to call for reinforcements, Paddle reported from her observation post. Quantum communication jamming grid activated. Throughout their space, Council commanders found their supposedly unblockable quantum communications reduced to static. The technology they'd proudly demonstrated during diplomatic exchanges was being used against them with devastating effectiveness. Launch the Phantom drones, Admiral Chen ordered from her command center. Across Earth's surface, what appeared to be civilian satellite control stations activated their true purpose. Thousands of autonomous combat units, disguised as debris and defunct satellites, powered up their stealth systems. The Council fleet found themselves surrounded by weapons platforms that seemed to materialize from empty space. Every evasive maneuver they attempted was countered before they executed it. Their own tactical doctrine turned against them with ruthless efficiency. High Counselor, one of Zixtal's subordinates reported, their crystalline form flickering with panic. They're not just matching our technology, they're exceeding it. These weapons, these tactics, they're designed specifically to counter our systems. Zixtal's form darkened as understanding dawned. All those cultural exchanges, the technology sharing programs, they weren't learning from us. They were studying us, learning our weaknesses. Incoming transmission from Earth, another officer announced. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared on the Council flagship's bridge. Her expression was polite, professional, and utterly devoid of mercy. High Counselor, humanity has spent centuries preparing for this moment. Every technology we shared, every capability we revealed, was carefully chosen to create a specific impression. You saw it exactly what we wanted you to see. But the peace treaties, the cultural exchanges, were opportunities to analyze your capabilities while hiding our own. Did you really think a species that spent its entire history preparing for war would simply abandon that capability? We didn't stop developing military technology. We just got better at hiding it. As if to emphasize her point, another wave of human ships emerged from dimensional pockets, their weapons already charged. This is just our first-line response force, Chen continued. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding? Or would you prefer to reconsider your declaration of war? In the silence that followed, humanity's hidden fleet hung in space like a lethal web, their weapons trained on the Council ships. Centuries of preparation, decades of hidden development, and generations of patient waiting had led to this moment. The Council had maintained peace through superior power for 3,000 years. Now they faced a species that had spent every moment since first contact preparing to challenge that superiority. And this was just the beginning. High Counselor Zixtal watched in stunned silence as tactical displays showed Council reinforcement fleets emerging from hyperspace across the solar system. Under normal circumstances, such a show of force would have ended any conflict immediately. But as the events of the past few hours had demonstrated, nothing about this situation was normal. Reinforcement Fleet Gamma reports ready for engagement, a subordinate announced, their crystalline form glowing with renewed confidence. Nearly 1,000 Council warships now surrounded the human homeworld. Surely now. Admiral Chen's hologram smiled. I see your reinforcements have arrived. Right on schedule. That simple statement sent a chill through Zixtal's crystalline structure. Schedule. Did you think we only prepared countermeasures for your initial assault force? Chen's hologram gestured, and new tactical displays appeared throughout the Council flagship. Allow me to demonstrate why patience is humanity's greatest weapon. Deep beneath the Marianas Trench, in a facility shielded from all known forms of detection, Dr. James Wong initiated Quantum Matrix Protocol Omega. All subsea quantum arrays online, he reported. Gravitic interference web activating. The Council fleet commanders noticed it first. Subtle fluctuations in their ship's artificial gravity fields. According to every sensor, nothing was wrong. But throughout their formation, crews began reporting increasing difficulty maintaining position. Unknown gravitational anomalies detected. Council tactical officers reported across the fleet. Source cannot be localized. You're experiencing the effects of our quantum gravity manipulation network, Chen explained. Those civilian oceanographic research stations we've been building for the past 50 years. They're actually nodes in a solar system-wide gravitational control system. As if to demonstrate, hundreds of Council ships suddenly found themselves unable to maintain formation. Their carefully planned attack patterns disrupted by invisible forces that defied their understanding of physics. Impossible, Zixtal whispered. This technology, it would take centuries to develop. It did, Chen confirmed. We began developing it the moment we detected your first probe entering our solar system, long before official first contact. Every scientific breakthrough we shared with you was carefully chosen to hide our real progress. High in the asteroid belt, Commander Lisa Zhao gave the order her team had waited decades to execute. Operation Starforge active. All mining facilities. Reveal true configuration. What the Council had dismissed as primitive resource extraction operations throughout the asteroid belt suddenly transformed. Massive structures that had masqueraded as mining equipment reconfigured themselves, revealing weapon systems that made their previous display of force look primitive. Those mining operations you so generously helped us optimize. Chen's voice carried a note of satisfaction. They were weapons factories, building and hiding our real fleet piece by piece, right under your sensors. From behind asteroids, within dimensional pockets, and emerging from camouflaged hangars built into the very rocks themselves, humanity's true military force revealed itself. Ships that dwarfed anything the Council had yet seen took up strategic positions throughout the solar system. By the first light, one of Zixtal's officers breathed. Their entire civilization, everything they showed us, was exactly what we wanted you to see, Chen finished. Every technological advancement we shared, every cultural exchange we participated in, every treaty we signed, all carefully calculated to create a specific impression. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden infrastructure activated. Quantum communication arrays buried in Mercury's polar craters, antimatter production facilities disguised as atmospheric processors on Venus, faster-than-light inhibitor fields masked as Jupiter's research stations. Your invasion fleet is now operating in an environment we've spent centuries preparing, Chen continued. Every cubic kilometer of this solar system has been engineered to serve our defense. Those tourist facilities on Mars, artillery platforms, the Europa Research Station, a quantum battlefield control center, even the space debris you've been cataloging. Every piece is part of our defensive network. To demonstrate, clouds of apparent space junk suddenly came alive, revealing themselves as drone swarms that began systematically disrupting Council formations. In her command center, Admiral Chen opened a secure quantum channel to all human forces. All units, execute final revelation protocols. Show them everything. Throughout the solar system, humanity's full military might emerge from hiding. Ships appeared from dimensional pockets within dimensional pockets, layers of deception peeling away to reveal the true extent of human preparation. 3,000 years of peace made you complacent. Chen addressed Zixtal directly. You forgot the most dangerous predator is the one that watches, learns, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. Humanity never forgot. We just got better at hiding it. The Council fleet found itself surrounded, outgunned, and trapped within a battlefield that had been carefully prepared for centuries. Every tactic they attempted had been anticipated. Every technology they deployed was countered before they could use it. They had come expecting to find a primitive species playing at galactic politics. Instead, they had walked into the trap of a civilization that had spent generations preparing for this exact moment. And humanity was just getting started. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, now convened on Earth's terms, High Counselor Zixtal's crystalline form had lost much of its former luster. The being who had once commanded the most powerful civilization in known space now sat across from Admiral Chen, watching as humanity's representatives systematically dismantle 3,000 years of galactic orthodoxy. "Let's be clear," Chen said, her voice carrying through the chamber's quantum acoustics. "Humanity doesn't want war. We never did. What we want is acknowledgement of a simple truth. The old order is over." Behind her, a holographic display showed the full extent of human technological achievement. Not the carefully curated version they'd shown the galaxy, but their true capabilities. The council representatives watched in stunned silence as centuries of human deception were finally revealed. "Your entire understanding of Earth was based on what we chose to show you," Dr. James Wong explained, standing beside a quantum interface that made council technology look primitive. "Those primitive satellites, quantum-linked sensor arrays, our basic AI research, actually quantum consciousness transfer systems. Even our children's entertainment contained encrypted military protocols." "But why?" Zixtal asked, their voice carrying genuine bewilderment. "Why maintain such an elaborate deception?" Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. "Because humanity learned something from our own history that the Council never understood. True peace doesn't come from superior force. It comes from mutual respect." In orbit above Earth, the combined fleets of humanity and the Council hung in space, a stark visual representation of the power shift that had occurred. But instead of humanity's ships maintaining aggressive positions, they were already beginning to stand down, returning to their hidden dimensional pockets. "We could continue this demonstration," Chen continued. "We could show you the quantum terraforming systems hidden beneath Mars' surface, or the temporal observation posts disguised as Kuiper belt objects. We could reveal how every piece of technology we shared with you contained hidden weaknesses we could exploit. But that's not the point." Commander Lisa Zhao stepped forward, activating a new holographic display. "This is our proposal for a new galactic order. Not one based on dominance, but on genuine cooperation. We've proven we can destroy your civilization. Now let us prove we can help build a better one." The display showed a comprehensive plan for galactic reorganization, new trade routes, technological exchange protocols, and defense arrangements. But unlike the Council's system, this one was built on genuine partnership rather than enforced peace. "You've maintained peace through superior power for 3,000 years, Chen said. "We're offering something different. Peace through mutual understanding. Yes, humanity has spent centuries preparing for war, but we spent even longer preparing for what comes after." Around the chamber, other species representatives began to show signs of interest. Many had chafed under the Council's benevolent oversight for millennia. The prospect of a new system, one where technological advancement wasn't controlled by a single power, held undeniable appeal. "Consider this," Dr. Wong added. "Everything we've revealed, every capability we've demonstrated, they're all defensive in nature. We built a military that could resist any invasion, developed technology that could counter any threat. But we never, not once, designed weapons of conquest." Zixtal's form shifted, showing the first signs of understanding. "You weren't preparing for war. You were preparing to prevent it." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our deception. It's our ability to learn from history. Every empire that relied solely on military might eventually fail. But civilizations that build on mutual respect, that find strength in diversity, they endure." The quantum screens around the chamber began displaying new information. Technological breakthroughs humanity had kept hidden, scientific discoveries that could benefit all species, medical advancements that could save countless lives across the galaxy. "This is our real gift to the galaxy," Chen declared. "Not the weapons we've hidden, or the technology we've disguised, but the knowledge we've gained. 3,000 years of enforced peace taught the galaxy to fear advancement. We're offering the chance to embrace it instead." As the Council representatives began discussing the implications, Admiral Chen walked to a window overlooking Earth. Somewhere down there, in countless hidden facilities and secret installations, humanity was already beginning to power down its war machinery. The weapons would remain, carefully maintained and hidden. Humanity hadn't survived this long by being careless, but their purpose would change. "You know," she said to Zixtel, who had approached silently, "there's an old human saying, si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. But we've added our own corollary. If you want lasting peace, prepare for what comes after." The crystalline being's form shimmered with what might have been appreciation. Perhaps humanity's greatest deception was convincing us you were primitive, when in fact you were simply wise. Chen smiled. "No, Counselor. Our greatest deception was waiting until we could show you the difference between power and strength. Now shall we begin discussing how to build something better than 3,000 years of peace through fear?" Above them, Earth's sun rose over a galaxy on the brink of transformation. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for war, only to use that preparation to forge a lasting peace. It wasn't the end they had prepared for, but it was the beginning they had hoped for all along. The age of deception was over. The age of true cooperation was about to begin. In the crystalline observation chamber of the Galactic Science Council's most advanced research station, first observer Ziratel's tentacles writhed in growing alarm. The quantum containment readings on her holographic displays were becoming increasingly unstable, pulsing an angry red that reflected off her iridescent scales. "Status report," she demanded, her translator converting her subtle chemical signatures into standard galactic common. "Critical deterioration in sectors 7 through 13, senior researcher Kex responded, his crystalline form flickering with anxiety. "The quantum anomaly is growing at an exponential rate. Our containment systems are failing faster than the automatics can compensate." The Nexus research station hung in space like a delicate snowflake, its crystalline spires housing the most advanced scientific minds in the galaxy. For 3 cycles, they had been studying a naturally occurring quantum anomaly, believing their superior technology made them immune to its chaotic effects. Now that same anomaly threatened to tear the station apart. "Time until complete containment failure?" Ziratel asked, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. 17 hours at current deterioration rates, Kex replied. "But first observer, the rate keeps accelerating. Our models didn't account for this level of quantum instability." Ziratel's scales shifted to a deep blue of concern. The station housed over 3,000 researchers and support staff from 27 different species. Their containment technology was supposed to be foolproof, their automated systems the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Yet here they were, watching those same systems fail one by one. "Send the emergency signal," she ordered. "Priority 1 distress call to all nearby council vessels." The message went out, bouncing between quantum relay stations across this sector of space. But as the responses started coming in, Ziratel felt her scales pale to an almost translucent white. The nearest Council rescue fleet is 3 days away. Communications Officer Vex announced, her crystalline form pulsing with distress. The 7th Scientific Squadron could arrive in just under 4 days. Everything else is too far. She stopped suddenly, her crystals flickering with surprise. First observer, I'm detecting a response from an unexpected vector. Show me, Zyratel commanded. The main holographic display shifted, showing a cluster of ships approaching from the direction of the Perseus arm. They were unlike anything Zyratel had ever seen in her centuries of service. Crude-looking vessels that seemed cobbled together from mismatched parts, their hulls bearing the scars of what appeared to be numerous repairs. Classification, she asked, studying the strange fleet. There, Vex hesitated, running the scan again. They're human vessels, first observer. Civilian ships, mostly, but they're broadcasting an emergency response signal. Humans, the galaxy's newest spacefaring species, barely a decade into their membership in the Galactic Council. Zyratel had read reports about them. Of course, a fascinating if primitive species that had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel, despite still using combustion engines in some of their surface vehicles. They can't be serious, Keck said, his crystalline form expressing disbelief through chaotic light patterns. Those ships look like they're held together with prayer and good intentions. Our quantum containment systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. What could they possibly? He was interrupted by an incoming transmission. The holographic display shifted, showing a human female wearing what appeared to be a heavily modified environment suit. Her dark skin was marked with lines that Zyratel had learned indicated age in humans, and her black hair was streaked with gray. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Emergency Response Vessel Tsunami, she said, her voice calm and professional despite the situation. We picked up your distress call and are approaching with a full rescue fleet, requesting permission to assist and immediate briefing on your situation. Zyratel felt her scales shift through several colors of uncertainty. The human ships were clearly not military vessels. Most of them appeared to be converted cargo haulers, and what her database identified as oil rig support ships, whatever those were, but they were also the only help within range. Captain Chen, she began carefully, I appreciate your offer, but this is a highly sophisticated research station dealing with extremely dangerous quantum phenomena. Our containment systems are failing, and the technical expertise required. First observer, Chen interrupted politely but firmly. Before I took this command, I spent 30 years leading deep-sea rescue operations on Earth. Quantum physics might be new to us, but dealing with containment failures under impossible conditions, that's something humans have been doing since before we mastered electricity. The captain's image was replaced by a series of rapid-fire visuals. Humans working in what appeared to be underwater structures, teams responding to something called a nuclear reactor breach, and rescue operations in environments that seemed to defy survival. Every ship in this fleet has a crew of experienced disaster response specialists. Chen continued as her image reappeared. We might not understand your quantum technology, but we understand crisis management, containment procedures, and most importantly, how to improvise when high-tech solutions fail. Another screen lit up, showing more human vessels dropping out of FTL. These ships were even stranger, massive floating platforms that Zyratel's database identified as converted deep-sea oil rigs, modified for space travel. Those are our heavy response units, Chen explained. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior. They're equipped with reinforced containment chambers originally designed to handle underwater oil well blowouts. We've modified them to handle spatial anomalies. Not as elegant as your quantum systems, but sometimes brute force and redundancy work better than elegance. Zyratel found herself fascinated despite her concern. The human ships were ugly, yes, but there was something about their robust construction that spoke of hard-won experience. They moved with precision that belied their awkward appearance, taking up formation around the station with practiced ease. First observer, Kex interrupted urgently. Containment Field 7 just collapsed. Cascade failure is accelerating. Zyratel made her decision. Their sophisticated technology was failing them. Perhaps it was time to try something different. Something tested not in computer simulations, but in the harsh reality of a young species' fight to master their own world. "Permission granted, Captain Chen," she said. "Sending you our status data now. And thank you. Save the thanks for after we've gotten everyone to safety." Chen replied with what Zyratel recognized as a human smile. Sanani actual out. As the transmission ended, Zyratel watched the human fleet begin their rescue operations. Their ships might be ugly, their methods unorthodox, but there was something reassuring about their confident approach to the crisis. Sometimes, she reflected, experience counted for more than technological sophistication. The humans were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about the value of getting your hands dirty in the name of saving lives. The Sanani's bridge was a study in organized chaos. Holographic displays showed the quantum containment fields failing across the research station, but Captain Chen was focused on a much older piece of equipment, a weather depth gauge modified for spatial distortions. "Just like the Mariana Trench rescue," she muttered, watching the readings climb. "Rodriguez, what do your pressure mappings show?" Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, a veteran of deep-sea salvage operations, manipulated a three-dimensional display of the station. "The quantum disruption is creating pressure waves similar to what we saw during the Pacific Shelf incident. Different cause, same effect. We've got compression zones building up around the containment barriers." The alien station's crystalline architecture sparkled against the void of space, its elegant spires now showing visible distortions as the quantum anomaly strained against its failing containment. Around it, the human rescue fleet had taken up positions that would have seemed random to outside observers, but made perfect sense to anyone familiar with deep-water rescue operations. "Deepwater Horizon. Status report," Chen called out. "In position, Captain," came the response from the massive converted oil rig. "Containment chambers are prepped. We've modified the pressure locks based on the Challenger Deep protocols." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. The aliens might not understand why humans had brought what they saw as primitive industrial equipment to a quantum physics crisis, but sometimes the old solutions were the best ones. "First observer Zyratel," Chen addressed the alien leader, whose holographic image showed scales shifting through various shades of anxiety. "We're ready to begin implementation of our containment strategy. However, I need you to do something that might seem counterintuitive." "What do you require, Captain?" The alien's translator conveyed her uncertainty. "Shut down your remaining quantum containment fields." The request caused an immediate stir among the alien researchers visible in the background. Their crystalline forms flickered with what Chen had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. "Captain," Kex interrupted, his crystalline structure practically strobing with distress, "those fields are the only thing holding the anomaly in check. If we deactivate them, those fields are failing because they're trying to impose order on chaos," Chen explained, pulling up a simulation on her display. "We learned this lesson the hard way in deep-sea operations. Sometimes trying to contain pressure makes it worse. You have to work with it. Redirect it." She gestured to where the Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior had positioned themselves. "Those ships aren't just platforms. They're pressure relief valves. We've modified their containment chambers to create a controlled channel for the quantum distortions. But your containment fields are fighting us, trying to maintain a perfect seal that's already failing." Rodriguez added her own data to the display. "Look at these pressure patterns. They're almost identical to what we saw during underwater volcano containment operations. Different type of energy, same basic principles of fluid dynamics." "Fluid dynamics." Zyratel's scales shifted to a color Chen hadn't seen before. "But this is a quantum anomaly, not a liquid." "Energy is energy," Chen replied with a shrug. "Whether it's superheated water from a thermal vent or quantum fluctuations from a spatial anomaly, it follows similar patterns when under pressure. We've been dealing with containing and redirecting dangerous energy flows since we first started exploring our ocean depths. She watched understanding slowly spread across the alien leader's features. The Galactic Council species had achieved spaceflight through careful, methodical advancement of their technology. Humans had done it differently. They'd learned to survive in every hostile environment that their world could throw at them, then taken those hard-won lessons to the stars. "Chief Harrison," Chen called out, "show them the containment sim." The main display lit up with a detailed simulation showing how the human fleet would handle the quantum energy. The converted oil rigs would act as primary containment points, their reinforced chambers designed to handle pressures that would crush most spacecraft. The support vessels, positioned in a pattern developed for handling underwater avalanches, would create a controlled flow path for the energy. "Those modifications to your ships," Kex observed, his crystal structure pulsing with what might have been reluctant admiration, "they're based on deep ocean equipment. When you're 5 miles under the ocean dealing with pressures that can crush titanium like paper, you learn to build things tough," Harrison replied. "We've been handling extreme containment situations since before we had computers to calculate the math for us. Sometimes the old ways work best." Chen watched the alien researchers studying the simulation, their initial skepticism giving way to cautious hope as they recognized the underlying principles at work. It might not be elegant, it might not be high-tech, but it was based on centuries of human experience in handling the impossible. "Time to containment failure?" she asked. 14 minutes, Kex reported, his crystalline form steady now, focused on the task at hand. "First observer," Chen said, turning back to Zeratel, "we need your decision. We can do this, but only if you trust us. Only if you're willing to let go of the idea that more advanced technology is always the answer." The alien leader was silent for a long moment, her scales shifting through various colors as she processed the situation. Finally, they settled on a deep, determined blue. "Deactivate the quantum containment fields," she ordered. "Captain Chen, the station is in your hands." As the alien technology powered down and the quantum anomaly began to surge free, Chen felt the familiar calm of a rescue operation settling over her. They were about to attempt something that had never been done before, using techniques developed for an entirely different environment. But that was what humans did best. They adapted, they improvised, and above all, they drew on their long history of facing down the impossible to save lives. "All ships, commence containment operations," she ordered. "Let's show the galaxy how Earth handles a crisis." The quantum anomaly erupted like an underwater volcano, sending waves of distorted spacetime crashing against the human fleet's formation. Inside the tsunami's command center, Captain Chen watched the energy readings spike across her displays, but her expression remained calm. She'd seen worse during the Pacific Ring of Fire incidents. "Deepwater horizon, status of primary containment," she called out, eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of quantum energy that now resembled nothing so much as a deep-sea current. "Holding steady, Captain," came the response from Commander Jack Torres. "Energy flow is following the predicted patterns. These old pressure chambers are proving their worth again." Through the main viewport, Chen could see the massive converted oil rigs' containment systems at work. What had once held back the crushing pressures of the ocean depths now channeled quantum forces that the aliens' advanced technology couldn't contain. The reinforced chambers glowed with an eerie light as they absorbed and redirected the energy. "Ocean Warrior, report," Chen commanded, switching her attention to the second primary containment vessel. "Secondary containment stable," replied Captain Sarah Martinez. "But we're seeing some unusual fluctuations in the eastern quadrant. Reminds me of those rogue waves we dealt with off the coast of Alaska." Chen nodded, remembering those missions. Nature had a way of teaching humans that no plan survived first contact with reality. "Rodriguez, analyze those fluctuations. See if we can adapt our Gulf Stream protocols to handle them." Lieutenant Rodriguez was already working her console, her fingers dancing across controls that merged modern holographic interfaces with old-school depth gauges and pressure monitors. Got it, Captain. The quantum energy is behaving like a thermocline layer. We're seeing distinct boundaries where the forces shift dramatically. On the research station's command deck, First Observer Zaratel watched in fascination as the human fleet adjusted their formation. Ships moved with practiced precision, taking up new positions that seemed to anticipate the anomaly's behavior. Incredible, Kex murmured, his crystalline form pulsing with academic interest. They're treating quantum forces like ocean currents. Because that's exactly what they are. Chen's voice came through the comm system. Energy is energy, whether it's water under pressure or space-time under strain. The principles of fluid dynamics still apply. You just have to adjust your scale and expectations. A sudden surge in the anomaly sent ripples of distorted space washing over the fleet. The alien observers tensed, but the human ships rode out the wave with practiced ease, their formation flexing and adapting like seaweed in a tide. Picking up secondary pressure buildups in sectors 3 and 7, Rodriguez reported. The quantum energy is starting to cascade, just like we predicted. Chen's expression tightened slightly. This was the critical moment. They'd seen similar patterns in underwater rescues when multiple pressure points threatened to create a catastrophic chain reaction. Deploy the buffer ships. Standard North Sea storm formation. A group of smaller vessels, converted deep-sea rescue craft, moved into position. Their hulls were scared from countless missions in Earth's most dangerous waters, but they moved with precision that spoke of crews who knew exactly what they were doing. Buffer ships in position, reported Commander Wei from the lead vessel. Beginning pressure redistribution sequence. The smaller ships activated modified versions of the same systems they'd once used to stabilize underwater structures during storms. Waves of counterpressure pulsed outward, creating safe channels for the quantum energy to flow through. First Observer, Chen called out to Zaratel, "We're going to need access to your station's structural integrity field controls. We need to synchronize them with our containment efforts." The alien leader's scales shifted through shades of uncertainty. "Captain, those controls are incredibly complex. Our engineers spend years learning to." With respect, First Observer, Chen interrupted gently, "We don't need to understand the theory. We just need to know which way the current flows. Lieutenant Rodriguez here has been handling deep-sea structural integrity fields since before we had computers to calculate the math." Rodriguez didn't look up from her console as she added, "It's all about feeling the pressure points, understanding where the stress wants to go naturally. Fighting it never works. You have to guide it, work with it." Zaratel made a decision. "Transferring control to your station now." As the structural integrity field controls appeared on Rodriguez's display, she began integrating them into the containment operation with the same instinctive skill that had once saved underwater habitats from collapse. The quantum energies, guided by human experience and alien technology working in concert, began to flow more smoothly through the containment network. Energy levels stabilizing. Kex reported, his crystalline form glowing with what might have been excitement. The containment pattern is holding. But Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. She'd seen too many rescue operations turn bad in their final moments. "Maintain formation," she ordered. "This isn't over yet. Nature's always got one more surprise up her sleeve." As if in response to her words, a new alert sounded across the fleet. The quantum anomaly was changing, evolving in ways that even the alien scientists' models hadn't predicted. The human rescue fleet was about to face its greatest test and prove that sometimes the best solutions came not from advanced technology, but from generations of hard-won experience in facing down the impossible. The quantum anomaly's transformation sent shockwaves through the containment network. On the tsunami's bridge, alarms blared as energy patterns shifted in ways that defied both alien science and human experience. Captain Chen watched as the carefully orchestrated rescue operation began to unravel. Multiple containment breaches detected, Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. The anomaly structure it's like nothing we've seen before. It's not just moving like a current anymore. It's starting to behave like a storm system. Through the viewport, Chen could see the quantum energy forming into spiral patterns that reminded her of hurricane formations. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior, their containment chambers already at capacity, struggled to maintain their hold on the forces they were channeling. Deepwater Horizon reporting critical pressure levels. Commander Torres called out, his voice tense. The containment chambers weren't designed for this kind of recursive energy pattern. We're looking at potential structural failure in 15 minutes. On the research station, first observer Ziratel's scales had turned a pale, frightened white. This is impossible, she transmitted. The anomaly is creating feedback loops within itself. Our models never predicted this level of self-organization. Chen's mind raced, drawing on decades of experience. She'd seen something similar once, during a rescue operation in the Arctic, when shifting ice flows had created unexpected pressure patterns that threatened to crush a research submarine. Rodriguez, she called out suddenly, bring up the data from the Novaya Zemlya incident. Her lieutenant's eyes lit up with understanding as she pulled the old mission files. The ice flow convergence. Captain, you're not suggesting. That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Chen opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships prepared to implement Arctic Protocol 7. Buffer ships realigned to create a divergence pattern. We're going to split this storm. Captain, Kex interrupted, his crystalline form pulsing with confusion. What are you planning? This is a quantum anomaly, not an ice flow. Pattern recognition. Researcher Kex, Chen replied, already directing her fleet into new positions. Back on Earth, we discovered that certain natural phenomena repeat themselves across different scales and mediums. What works for ice can work for water. What works for water can work for air. And sometimes, just sometimes, what works in the ocean can work in space. She pulled up a simplified display of their new strategy. In the Arctic, we learned that you can't always contain pressure. Sometimes you have to split it, create artificial channels for it to dissipate through. The principle should work here, even if the physics are different. Should work. Ziratel's scales shifted to a new shade of anxiety. Welcome to human rescue operations, first observer, Chen said with a grim smile. Sometimes you have to trust your gut and decades of experience over theoretical models. The fleet began to move into their new formation. The buffer ships, originally positioned to contain the quantum energy, now arranged themselves in a wedge pattern. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior, their containment chambers straining, prepared to release their held energy in a controlled burst. This is insane, one of the alien researchers muttered over the open channel. They're going to try to split a quantum storm using techniques designed for frozen water. Wouldn't be the craziest thing we've done, Rodriguez commented, her fingers flying over her controls as she coordinated the fleet's movements. You should have seen us adapt deep-sea mining techniques for asteroid extraction. Chen watched the quantum storm continue to build, its spiral arms now resembling a massive hurricane made of distorted space-time. They'd have one shot at this. If their timing was off, if their understanding of the energy patterns was wrong, they'd lose both the station and the fleet. All ships in position, Rodriguez reported. Waiting for your order, Captain. Chen took a deep breath, feeling the familiar calm of a critical moment settle over her. This was what humans did best, taking what they knew and applying it in ways no one had ever imagined before. Execute Arctic Protocol 7, she commanded. Deepwater Horizon, Ocean Warrior. Release containment on my mark. The quantum storm raged around them, its energy patterns growing more complex by the second. But Chen wasn't watching the storm anymore. She was watching the subtle indicators she'd learned to read over decades of rescue operations. The slight shifts in pressure, the almost imperceptible changes in energy flow that told you when the moment was right. 3, 2, 1, mark. The containment ships released their held energy in carefully calculated bursts. The buffer ships' deflection fields engaged, creating a network of channeled pathways. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like ice breaking apart under controlled demolition, the quantum storm began to split. Energy dispersion patterns holding, Rodriguez called out, excitement creeping into her voice. The storm is breaking up exactly like the ice flows did. Chen allowed herself a small smile as she watched their improvised solution take effect. The quantum energy, denied its chance to form a catastrophic feedback loop, dispersed along the channels they'd created. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't theoretically sound, but it was working. Remarkable. Kex transmitted, his crystalline form pulsing with what might have been awe. You took a solution designed for frozen water and applied it to quantum mechanics. And it worked. That's the thing about human engineering, Chen replied, watching the last of the quantum storm dissipate. We learned long ago that the universe often uses the same patterns over and over. Once you understand the pattern, the medium doesn't matter as much as you'd think. But even as the immediate crisis began to fade, Chen's expression remained focused. They still had to stabilize the station, evacuate non-essential personnel, and ensure the anomaly wouldn't reform. The day was far from over, and if there was one thing human rescue workers knew, it was that you never celebrated until everyone was safe at home. 2 days after the quantum storm's dissipation, Captain Chen stood in the research station's crystalline observation chamber, watching her fleet conduct final stability checks. The Deepwater Horizon and Ocean Warrior had taken up protective positions around the weakened sections of the station, their modified containment systems now helping to reinforce the structure until permanent repairs could be made. Your ships look different now, First Observer Zuratel noted, her scales shifting through thoughtful shades of blue and green. When you first arrived, I saw only crude vessels that seemed out of place among the stars. Now I see the wisdom in their design. Chen smiled, running her hand along a worn depth gauge she'd insisted on installing in her environment suit. That's humanity in a nutshell, First Observer. We may not have the most elegant solutions, but we build things to last. Every scar, every patch, every modification tells a story of lessons learned the hard way. The station's main holographic display showed the aftermath of their improvised rescue operation. The quantum anomaly had been successfully dispersed, its energy spread out across a vast area of space where it could harmlessly dissipate. More importantly, all 3,000 researchers and staff members were safe. The Galactic Science Council has requested a full report on your methods, Kex announced, approaching with his crystalline form glowing with academic excitement. They're particularly interested in how you adapted oceanic rescue techniques for quantum phenomena. I'm not sure they'll find much use for our methods, Chen replied honestly. We didn't solve this crisis because we understood the quantum mechanics involved. We solved it because we've spent centuries learning how to handle the unexpected. That's precisely what interests them, Ziratel interjected. Our species pursued technological advancement through careful, methodical research. We developed solutions for specific problems, always building upon established theoretical frameworks. But humans, Kex continued, his crystals pulsing with revelation, you develop your technology by confronting natural disasters, by surviving in hostile environments, by facing challenges that couldn't wait for theoretical understanding. Rodriguez, who had joined them in the observation chamber, laughed. You should see some of our early deep-sea rescue equipment. Half of it was invented on the spot during actual emergencies. When you're 5 miles underwater and something goes wrong, you can't wait for peer-reviewed research. The station's displays shifted to show the human fleet's rescue operations from multiple angles. The aliens had recorded everything, from the initial containment efforts to the final dispersal of the quantum storm. Watching it now, even Chen had to admit it looked impressive. The way the ships moved in coordinated patterns developed over centuries of ocean rescues, the seamless adaptation of deep-sea technology to space-based problems. We've received word from the Council, Ziratel announced, her scales shifting to formal patterns. They're establishing a new division within the Emergency Response Department, focused on integrating human rescue techniques with our existing protocols. They want us to teach you? Chen asked, surprised. They want us to learn from each other, Kex corrected. Your methods may seem unorthodox to us, but they've proven something vital, that sometimes the oldest solutions, born from direct experience rather than theoretical advancement, are the most reliable. An alert sounded, and Rodriguez checked her Modify console. Final structural integrity checks are complete, Captain. The station is stable, and the anomaly's remnants are continuing to dissipate as predicted. Chen nodded, feeling the familiar satisfaction of a successful rescue operation. It wasn't about the recognition or the accolades. It was about saving lives, about proving that humanity's hard-won experience had value even in an age of advanced technology. There's an old saying among Earth's rescue workers, she said, turning to Zyratel and Kex. The sea is the best teacher. Everything we know about handling crisis situations, about adapting and improvising, we learned from facing down the most powerful force on our planet. And now you've brought those lessons to the stars, Zyratel observed, her scales showing patterns of deep respect. We had to, Chen replied simply. Space is just another ocean, bigger, darker, but governed by the same fundamental truth we learned in Earth's waters. Respect the environment, understand its patterns, and never assume your technology makes you immune to its power. As if to emphasize her point, the tsunami's scared hull caught the light of a distant star, its battle-worn surface telling the story of countless rescue operations across two different mediums. The supposedly primitive vessel now stood as a symbol of humanity's unique approach to crisis management, practical, adaptable, and born from generations of hard-won experience. Captain, Zyratel said formally, the Council has one more request. They would like Earth's rescue fleets to establish permanent bases in key sectors throughout governed space. Your perspective could prove invaluable in future crises. Chen shared a knowing look with Rodriguez. They'd come to help with a single emergency and ended up changing how an entire galaxy thought about crisis response. Not bad for a bunch of converted deep-sea rescue workers. Tell the Council we accept, she replied. But remind them, we do things our way. Sometimes that means getting our hands dirty. Sometimes it means improvising solutions that don't look pretty but get the job done. After what we've witnessed here, Kex said, his crystalline form glowing with certainty, I don't think anyone will question your methods again. As Chen looked out at her fleet, still maintaining their protective formation around the station, she smiled. Humanity had brought more than just ships and technology to the stars. They'd brought generations of experience in facing down the impossible, in finding ways to survive and save others when pure technology wasn't enough. The galaxy might have superior technology, but humans had something equally valuable. The wisdom earned through centuries of learning to survive Earth's harshest environments. And now, those hard-won lessons would help protect life throughout the cosmos.